Alrighty, in this video we're going to do something slightly different than I've normally done, and we're going to go over an interview question. Specifically, we're going to go over an interview question that I just came across and I did not immediately think of the solution for, and I'm greatly disappointed in myself because of it. So I thought I'd do a video on it and do a video on figuring out how to solve it. So what I have done is created a little file. So the interview question is swap A and B in place. So at the moment we have A and B and they're both equal to 0. That's because we are going to set the values in our test cases. So what we've got going on here, in this whole section here, we've got 3 unit tests, 1, 2 and 3, and what these test cases do is they set values for A and B, then they call the swap method, and then they do what's called an assertion. And in these cases we're going to be inserting that for example, that A is equal to 5 and that B is equal to 4. Okay, so we start off with A being equal to 4 and B being equal to 5, so it's going to have swapped the variables around. And the point is here that we're going to do it in place, which means we're not going to be using temporary variables. So I've got 3 test cases. If we were to run this now, 2 of these tests would fail, 1 of them would pass, and it's one that I would expect to pass because we have basically set them both the variables to be equal. So we're saying set A to 5, set B to 5, and then assert true that nothing has changed. Given we're doing nothing in the method, that makes perfect sense at the moment. So we're going to quickly run those and you can see what happens. Okay, we have 2 failures, 1 of them passes. You can see 1 and 2 have failed. So false is not true. So it's saying that this statement here has evaluated to false and it hasn't been true. Okay, so ideally what we actually want to have happen here is we want to see all of the tests fail first. This is something called TDD, test-driven development, and I'll briefly explain what that is. Basically, the idea is that you write your test cases first and then you do your actual coding afterwards, and then it's sort of a way of approaching code. So now we can see that these fail. All of them fail because I've changed this variable over here to 0. It's a sort of stupid thing to have done because obviously we've not got anything happening here, but we just want to make sure that the assert's working. Of course it's going to be working in this case, so I'm going to change it back real quick. And what we're going to do now is we're going to actually do the figure out how to solve this. What this means is we can write our code and then run our tests and check that our code actually works because we've got our tests in place and we know what should be happening. So let's consider how we actually need to solve this. So we can't use temporary variables. So we can't do, for example, temp is equal to A and then B is equal to temp, so on and so forth. So we've got to use arithmetic. We've got to use maths to figure this out. Now, there are 3 possible cases that I can think of that we need to account for. And one of them is test case 3 here, and that's where both of them are equal. When both of them are equal, we want to do nothing at all because we don't have to swap them. When A is greater than B, we want to do one thing, and when B is greater than A, we want to do something, well, we want to do the opposite. So we only really need to write the code that does these 2 things because we can just write an if statement, and if we don't cover the case where they're equal, it'll never do anything. You'll see what I mean. So let's start off with the case that A is greater than B. Well, if A is greater than B, what we need to do is we need to say B is equal to B minus A, right? So B minus A. So in this case, B minus A is going to now mean that B is equal to 1. So then we need to say A is equal to A plus B. In other words, 4 plus 1. So A is now equal to 5. Take B, and we now need to do the reverse. We need to say A minus B. So 5 minus that 1 means that that's now equal to 4. And what I was saying with TTD is we can now run this. We haven't actually completed the solution yet, but we can run it. We can see what happens. And I've made an absolute grievous error, so it doesn't work. We need to say global A and B first. So we're actually referencing the global variables here. Run it again, and now we have 1 failure, which is what we're expecting. So we've got the failure here, which is perfectly fine. That is the case where A is less than B. Obviously the case where they're both equal is going to pass because nothing happens in that instance, so A and B remain at 5. That's perfectly fine. So now let's see if we can address test case 1, where A is less than B. So the way we can do that is we can just say elif. And the reason you want to say elif is just to make it explicit exactly what we're doing here, because if we said else, then obviously this would consider the case where A is equal to B. So for this, we just need to do the exact opposite of what we've done in terms of what we start off with. So we do A is equal to A minus B, and then we do B is equal to B plus A, and then we do A is equal to B minus A. Okay, so it's just the exact opposite of what we just did. We don't need to do anything else for the equals case because, of course, when A and B are equal, nothing gets evaluated, so nothing changes, which is exactly what you'd want. We run this now, and we should see that, yes, all the tests have passed, all the tests are okay. So we've actually solved this interview question, and it was actually rather simple. But like I say, I was really annoyed that I did not immediately think of this solution. So yeah, been a slightly different video than normal. So if you liked it, leave a like, and I'll know to make more of these videos in the future. I have more difficult interview questions that I'm probably going to do. Subscribe if you want more videos like this, and thank you very much for watching. Ta-ta!